Well, what's up again there, guys? My name is Brian, the 3 Topics Gamer, here to share with you another one of my RTVs, or requested topic videos. As I can share from the title that you clicked on, this video will be going over sharing what are my 5 all-time favorite video game endings. Now, if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to track me on my future videos ideas. And remember, if you have a video idea that you would like to see me do, make sure you share that idea in the comments down below, and I will try to get it up as soon as I can. And before I start, I would just like to thank my awesome subscriber going by this name for the video idea. If you do happen to see this video, I do apologize for not getting this video out sooner. I've just been kind of bogged down for a number of projects. And before we get started, this list isn't really in any particular order, so it's not really a ranking. It's just the top 5 endings that really stick to me the most, that I think about the most, and I think really make these particular games some of my all-time favorite. So, wasting any more time, let's go into my very first video game ending, best of all time, at least to me. Now, the most recent game that fits this list of having one of some of the best endings that I've ever experienced in a game has to go to Cyberpunk 2077. Now, with my first playthrough, I picked a corpo, and having had a fun time with my very first playthrough, the ending that I think works specifically if you play as a corpo is the Stars ending. Now, just for a quick summary, you play as a mercenary named V who has a biochip in his head that is going to end up killing them. Now, with the Stars ending, you pretty much choose to go with Pan Am's Avocados Nomads, and they actually help you assault Arasaka in order to see if you can find a cure. Unfortunately, there is no cure, and ultimately V decides to leave Night City to go live with the Nomads and Pan Am for whatever amount of time that they have left to live. Now, I think playing as a corpo, this ending really is the most meaningful. As a corpo, you really have spent the majority of your life living at the top with the most powerful people that control Night City, and I can't really see them being very relatable to a street kid. But with Night City being your only home, leaving Night City is really a big decision. I mean, you've been at the top, you know what it's like, and everyone down below is trying to go up and be a person in that position, but you've already done that. And so leaving Night City is really a major character change, because you're leaving the only home that you've ever known, only to know that you don't have a very long period of time to live. And that's everyone's story. None of us really know exactly the day and moment that we're actually going to die, but we have to really live every single moment we can to the fullest. And I believe that as Corpo V, this is really the ending that really makes the most sense and really is the most impactful, which is why the Stars ending of Cyberpunk 2077 is the first game on this list for me. Next on my list, we're going to have to go to Rapture, but instead of the very first BioShock game, it's actually the very good ending for BioShock 2 that makes it to this list. Now, the primary story for BioShock 2 pretty much has you take on the role of playing a Big Daddy, who supposedly is killed earlier on in the game, and when you're revived, you actually have to fight your way through Rapture in order to actually find your personal little sister, who by the time you find her, you actually find out that she's actually grown up a bit and has become a big sister. And through your efforts, you actually help her and the other little sisters actually escape Rapture, only for you to kind of be transferred into some sort of vial. That way you're kind of, I mean, the ending's a little bit confused, but I just thought it was sweet that this time you were playing as Big Daddy, and by the end you actually get to find your own personal little sister, and she kind of takes your essence and puts it inside herself so that you're kind of always watching her and protecting her in a sense. And I just thought that was really the sweetest out of all of the BioShock game endings. I mean, overall, I still think the first game is an overall better game with a better story, with a better villain, but I just think that ending in BioShock 2 really is my favorite out of all of the games, which is why it makes it on my list. The next ending on my list has to go to the hero ending of the very first infamous game from Sucker Punch. Now, what I really like about this game's ending is that not only is it one of the best endings, it probably has the greatest twist that I've ever seen in any game, period, because it's really a twist that I never saw coming. Now, as a quick summary of the game, you play as Cole McGrath, who, after surviving an explosion at the beginning of the game, wakes up having a series of very devastating powers. Now, over the course of the game, you're forced to make a lot of really difficult decisions, including one decision that actually causes Cole's love interest, Trish, to die. Now, by the final battle, you actually end up going up against this powerful opponent named Kessler, and after defeating and killing him, you find out that Kessler is actually an older version of Cole who traveled back in time and ostensibly prepared him faster in order to deal with a future threat called the Beast. I really never even considered the possibility that the main villain was actually a future version of himself that was willing to actually kill the woman he loved in order to push his younger self to be stronger. I mean, that was just absolutely incredible. And that really gives you a major head start as for why the second game's story is even better, which is why the Infamous first two games are really some of the best games I've ever played. But it really started with the ending of the very first Infamous game in its hero ending, which is why it makes it on my list. Now, these next two endings are some major heavy hitters for me because they come from my two favorite video games of all time. And the first one coming up happens to come from Final Fantasy X, which is not only my second favorite video game of all time, but my favorite JRPG game of all time. Now, just to give you a quick summary of the story without being too confusing, you take on the role of a sports player named Titus who gets transported 1,000 years into the future in order to join a group of guardians protecting a young summoner who's traveling all around the land of Spirit collecting summonings so that she can then gain access to a final summoning that will then allow her to defeat a giant monster named Sin. However, on the way there, you are told that if you defeat Sin and Yevon, which is the primary antagonist of the game that really doesn't show up till the very end, the main character Titus will then disappear and fade into pretty much the far planes, which is pretty much Spirit's interpretation of heaven. Now, why this ending hits really hard is it's really, in my opinion, from my experience, the very first Final Fantasy game that actually had a somewhat sad ending. But it's a sad ending that you are told is going to happen quite earlier on in the game. Only a couple of people know what's going to happen, and that's you and Titus and the Faiths. The rest of the party doesn't know what's going to happen to you, and yet you still push through. And then that final moment when you're disappearing and Yuna just can't give you a hug and she loves you and she doesn't want to see you fade away, I mean, that really hits you hard. I mean, this is the first time you're actually going to lose the main protagonist of a Final Fantasy game. Now, I won't say, as some people say, that the sequel Final Fantasy X-2 ruins this ending. I don't think it does. I think it just kind of adds more to the story of Yuna's character. But this one really was the first time for me that a game ending had a somewhat bittersweet ending, in the sense that it acknowledges that you achieved something very spectacular, but you had to make a powerful sacrifice in order to do that. And you do lose a number of characters along the way, so it kind of gives you that old sense of greater the victory, greater the sacrifice. And this game's ending perfectly embodies that. Plus, it has an absolutely beautiful soundtrack, which, adding all these elements, really brings, in my opinion, my favorite ending in any JRPG game of all time, which is why it's on this list. The last game on my list is going to have to go to the ending of my all-time favorite video game of all time in the form of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Now, to give you guys another quick summary of this game's plot, you take on the role of a special trained agent going by the name of Naked Snake, who is sent onto a mission in Russia in order to destroy a weapon called the Shagohod that has the ability to fire nukes into the United States. While doing that, you are also assigned to take out all the members of a special unit called the Cobras, and one of its members, going by the name The Boss, was actually the very woman that trained you. Now, the ending really kicks off after you successfully destroyed the Shagohod and killed the boss. You find out that your own government convinced your mentor to turn traitor in order to get access to a special card that had a record of funds, and that your government manipulated you into killing that woman in order to recover these funds. That's right. Your own government manipulated you into killing someone you cared about for money that they were just going to use for their own needs. and they felt that because the boss was too noble of a character, that they had to get rid of her. I mean, there is no positivity in this. I mean, that hit you like a sledgehammer to the head. I mean, for all this time, we were told that Big Boss was just this notorious terrorist who wanted to destroy the world. But really, when you get to understand his story and understand what he went through, it really kind of opened your eyes as for why he went the path he did. Now, did Big Boss go a little bit extreme later on in his life? Yes. But you can't really blame the guy for making the choices he did at that stage of his life, going through what he went through, and really, that has hit me harder than any video game ending, which is why it has really helped it establish itself as being my all-time favorite video game of all time, and really, probably the best ending I've seen in a video game, and that's why it deserves to be the last game on this list. And those are my 5 favorite video game endings. I don't know about you, but I think some of you guys would agree that some of these endings are actually pretty compelling. So now that you guys know 5 of my favorite video game endings, I would love for you to share what are 5 of your favorite video game endings. Share your favorite endings in the comments down below. And like always, I want to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you guys next time.